New arc line. Bro, what the f? I don't know about you, broski, but I absolutely love it when I find a kind of hidden gem game in the ever so vast library of games that either have already been released or are on the cusp of potential greatness. And on PC at least, the best way to kind of test the waters in launching a game is launching it in early access. New arc line is all of those things combined, and I do sorely hope that makes any kind of sense to you as it did in my head, because I felt like it sounded way better in my head. Now, I've been following this game for a little while, honestly, because the game looks like the love child of BioShock Infinite and Baldur's Gate 3. So, of freaking course I had to play it for myself and see whatever the f the game is, first of all, but also, more importantly, if you should be playing it, my dudes. So subscribe if you're new, and let's get into the experience that is New Arc Line. Now, keep in mind that a lot of these things in the game are somewhat subject to change because the game is still in early access, and what I played here is the first 10-ish hours of the game and kind of the first act of the game, if you will. And there's a lot to get into. What really surprised me is how the gameplay loop goes, because my first impressions of New Arc Line were that this game was more of an action-oriented RPG, a turn-based RPG, but I was surprised at the amount of talking that I had to do in this game, but in a good way. Like, I'm very positive. My impressions were changed, admittedly, but to the good kind of impressions, if you know what I'm saying. And this is only speaking with regards to the first act, at least, because in the first act, the game emphasizes way more on the world building and the conversations that you have with other people, kind of like planting seeds, if you will. But speaking of planting seeds, the game starts you off at the moment where all the harvesting has been done of said planted seeds and plants.
What?
Because it starts off like any other action game where it's like the oh no, what have I done kind of moment where the world is gone to doom and gloom, it's destroyed, and you're just there injured walking around trying to figure out whatever the hell happened around you. And then before it gets interesting, it kind of skips back to I think 2 months prior, where it kind of starts you off at this journey where you're like, oh my god, I saw the ending, but now I'm intrigued to know whatever happens for me to get to that point. Now you are this custom character, of course, that comes to a port, and this port is the checkpoint where a train line is bound for a world called New Arc, hence the name New Arc Line. I know, bro, the name of the game was confusing to me at the start, at least, but that confusion was thankfully cleared up within like the first hour of the game. Now, before the train departs for the new promised lands, your character has some business to attend to in delivering some super secret briefcase that has some artifact inside of it to the local mob boss named Red Simon, who's this alcoholic dwarf, for lack of a better word to explain him really. He's this cool looking dude, and now as much as I'd love to keep talking about the lore stuff in this world, because I really did enjoy the world that they built here, I feel like the meat, the carne that people are really interested in is the gameplay loop and how that goes in the game. Now, if you've played Baldur's Gate 3, which at this point I would imagine is everyone and their freaking mothers, this game will be right up your alley, because first of all, it's a turn-based combat system, of course, but secondly, the depth of conversations in this game, it was super nice to sink my ever so dull teeth into, in all honesty. Now, while you're in the midst of your character creation, you can invest points into different traits like deception, intimidation, charm, and all of that jazz. Like, you can really make the hero or villain that you want to make, even if the actual character creator itself is a bit limited in terms of cosmetic shebangs. And don't even get me started on the picture that you choose for the character, because that shit was ass, bro. I'm looking at you publishers and devs, man. You have only 4 available images to choose from, I think it was 4, and to have a custom character that looks completely different to the 4 characters is a crime in itself and should be fixed as soon as possible. Otherwise, apart from that, the actual amount of traits and skills that you get to choose vastly outweighs the amount of cosmetic stuff in the game. That was awesome to see overall, so I will forgive this mishap, if you may. Is it mishap? Normally in these types of games, I tend to make a Peas for Brains variant of Kenpachi Kisama. Now subscribe if you get that reference, of course. I see you Bleach fans out there, man. Ching. For the people who don't understand that reference, it's more of a punch first, talk later kind of hero. Of course, but this time I went for a smooth talker, and boy, oh boy, was that a great idea, because like I said in the early game, man, there's a lot of talking, man. Doing smaller gigs and kind of setting up the world around you, so you'll be doing a lot of back and forth, and you'll be rolling the dice on multiple occasions on your way to the New Arc Line. Like, I'm talking, you'll be helping a famous director of a play in finding his alcoholic actors and convincing them to show up to the premiere, or helping uncover an underground fighting pit hosted by the local doctor where people who have been affected by the Iron Plague fight to make a freaking bag for their families, man. You might also steal some old lady's slippers while doing the most Home Alone shit I've ever seen in a game. There's an objective in the game, literally, where you have to pour oil on a flight of stairs and probably watch someone slip and fall and crack their head open. You'll also be playing a few rounds of Guess Who to recruit a man to drink the most potent moonshine that there is. And this specific moonshine is made by an ugly chubby fairy who's, I am assuming, is the fairy of liquor. Like bro, the cast of characters here are an absolute joy to meet and talk to, in all honesty. Of course, sometimes the conversations don't go the way that you would hope for, and you'll have to resort to the most basic and most barbaric form of conversation having, which is swinging the old fisticuffs. And you won't be doing it alone as well, as you meet certain characters in your journey that will join your cause as per turn-based use. These characters you meet all have their own personalities, but the skills that they have in combat are based on the weapon they use and the kind of class that they are. Now, admittedly, the combat is the basic form of turn-based jazz, with you having points split between movement and action. Now, what felt different in the combat in the game overall was how deliberate the need to fight felt. I don't mean the actual combat, but the actual necessity to fight in the game. I went like a solid 3 hours, I think, with only like 3 to 4 actual gunfights in the game. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, I get why some people might be turned off by that idea. But in general, I felt like fighting in this game, in the first act at least, felt like it was the last option. Like I've tried everything else and nothing else worked. So I had to resort to the old 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know if it's 1, 2, 3, 4 in all honesty. There are some cool combinations now in the combat that you can do with certain weapons and characters. And while that was surprisingly awesome to pull off, and using the environment in certain situations was very intuitive to do, and I do hope that word intuitive fits there, honestly. The overall combat didn't feel all too tactical in a general sense, because most of the enemies you meet just pretty much beeline it towards you and try to end your damn life. I was very happy to have chosen my diesel junkie firearm specialist character, because that was overpowered as broski. I melted most people before they even got a lick of my scent, and a big old no diddy on that licking part right there. Now, the combat is one aspect in the game that I do hope they add stuff to during its early access infancy. The game at this moment in time is more about maybe giving you a taste of the game, not what the actual game is gonna be like. And you get to see the potential that there is here to have, because this game, man, it can really be great if they fix some of the issues that I will pretty much mention right now, as a matter of fact, because the performance of the game, now look, I don't want to say it's terrible, because again, it's early access, but thinking of the fact that you have to spend the majority of the first act in that hometown, like the starting town, overall I felt like when I'm outside in the world, in the city, I got frame city, broski, and that was a bit annoying to experience, in all honesty. But once you get inside, the frames tend to get a lot better. Still, the fact that most of the act 1 is spent walking around the city and talking to different people, it did affect the overall immersion, unfortunately. And I do sorely hope performance and some of the graphical jank gets fixed sooner rather than later, because the world, the theme, and the stories that people have to tell are just great, like to the point where, regardless of the performance issues, I still wanted to find out what happened next, and a very few games manage that. I mean, if I'm being super honest, some games might work perfectly fine and still not be interesting enough to progress in. But with all that being said, I mean, it does come back to the oh so lovely and completely imaginary rating system that we like to rate games in on this channel. And if you're new here, I rate games on a 3-tier list system of day 1 buys, maybe waits, or only fans, pun intended. New York Line has the absolute potential to be a very successful game, because the setting is truly one of a kind. The idea of the world having this high-tension civil war-ish conflict between technological advancement and magic, and the different races on top of the lurking Iron Plague, all make for a very interesting premise to a game. Talking to people is fun, and seeing how your choices have either an immediate impact on the well-being of certain characters, or alternatively lays the seeds for future events to come later on, builds this intrigue around the world and the player wanting to actually do quests and see how the world unfolds around you. Now, regardless of these things, and mainly because of the performance issues that there are here, the game ultimately still needs a bit of time to cook, broski, and I gotta be very honest with that. It's fun, but clearly a work in progress. So that's the only reason I would rate it a maybe wait at this point in time. And it's mostly because, yes, it's the first act, so you'll get more acts as time goes on, similar to how Baldur's Gate released in early access and it only had the first act. I mean, it's not as grand in scale, admittedly, but there's a lot to enjoy here and a lot of quests to get through. And like I said, man, it's about 10-ish hours. But yeah, performance. That's the big issue here, and it needs to be fixed sooner rather than later, because otherwise it's just gonna fall apart. People aren't gonna get super interested in playing a game that the performance kind of suffers in. Now, if you're willing to overlook some of the performance issues and want to get immersed in an absolutely amazing story-rich world with fun combat and a wide cast of weirdly awesome characters, then check out the link in the description below for more information and potentially pick this freaking game up for yourself. Big shout out to Lurkit, Fulcrum Publishing, and Dreamate for giving me a review code for the game. Like, bro, you cannot even begin to imagine how surreal it feels to having watched videos where people are like, hey, check the link in the description below and play the game for yourself, and now I get to do that. Like, I get to say, check the description box below. There's a link to an affiliate link to the Steam page of this game, and you get to pick the game up for yourself if you want to. If not, then yeah, subscribe to the channel, man. I don't really know how to sell that part, but whatever the f do I know, man. I'm just a random gamer on the internet telling you I enjoyed a game and hope that you would too. So now it's your turn to tell me your opinion on New Arc Lion in the comments down below, broski. Yes, man, comment what you think of this game, what you think of the potential that this game has in general. If you've played it, if you're looking to play it, man, any and all comments will take this video a long ass way. In any case, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. That's pretty much wraps it up for myself. I hope you guys have a great day wherever you're from, whichever time of day you watch this at. If you're interested in watching more content, then click this link right here or this link right there, or just subscribe to the channel in general, which I've said 3 times already, which is absolutely insane. In any case, keep on trucking my broskis. I'll catch you in the next upload. Peace.
Stepped on me. Stepped on me? Are you kidding? This guy was dancing on me. I mean, just look at this. Broken, broken, gone, gone, broken, broken, broken.